very good evening to everyone who has joined us today to hear something that is going to be very, very interesting, and I assure you it's going to be a great learning. Conservation has become a huge career opportunity for young people, and I'm so delighted that so many young people and so many of our senior members from the Museum Society have joined us here this evening. So on behalf of the chairman and the trustees and the Director General, Mr. Mukherjee, who I'm afraid is not able to join us here today, I extend a very, very warm welcome. If I may be a little informal and say, Anupam, you're one of us. But even then, let me extend a very, very cordial and warm welcome to you for this evening's talk. It's an interesting talk. It's on colors in manuscripts and miniatures of the Indian subcontinent. And I don't have to elaborate on colors because our lives are full of color. He's given it a very interesting title as well, Rang-Rasayan. I thought that was very, very fascinating. So a few words about what we're going to hear today. I've seen a few of the slides, and he's going to be showing us some exquisitely illustrated manuscripts and miniature paintings that have been created right along the length and breadth of the Indian subcontinent. While brilliant and learned scholars have enriched the world with the knowledge in the written texts, there is an expansive space for much greater awareness of the delightful Indian heritage of colors, dyes, and binders, and how it is entwined with the lives of all Indian people. This lecture will introduce us to the world of these colors that enliven the manuscripts and the painting heritage in India. Anupam Sah is a well-known conservator, art conservation, research, training at CSMVS Mumbai. He's a visiting faculty and a member of Board of Studies at the CSMVS PG Diploma Program in Museology and Conservation, and at St. Xavier's College for the MA program, course in Ancient Indian History, Culture, Archaeology, and at the Center in Ancient and European Studies at the Mumbai University. He has also taught at universities in India, other universities in India and abroad. Anupam practices an interdisciplinary approach to what he does, what he calls the conservation challenges, with a systematic approach. And this enables him to work in heritage conservation with other sectors and engage in community-driven holistic conservation efforts. Way back in 2006, when I actually got to know Anupam a little bit through Himalayan and mountaineering activities, he founded the not-for-profit Himalayan Society for Heritage and Art Conservation and Anupam Heritage Labs Private Limited. He has been an expert advisor to various central and state government departments, as well as to international cultural bodies. He's been conferred with the Sanskriti Award and the UNESCO Asia Pacific Commendations, as well as the Order of the Star of Italy for his excellence in art conservation. Presently, with backing of supporting institutions and individuals, as a team player, as he keeps on describing himself, he's developed facilities across India with the purpose of strengthening heritage and conservation education and its aligned practices. And I wouldn't be wrong in addressing you today, Anupam, as Dr. Anupam Sah. So please welcome Anupam. And before I hand you over to the technical team, let me thank my technical team. We have our new intern, Mrinalini. I'm so glad that you have joined us. And our volunteers who've been really steadfast in their support for these over 12, 13, 15 months that we've been doing these lectures, Ami and Sanjana. Thank you so much for holding the fort, along with Jason Johns, our wonderful honorary secretary and who heads the technical team. So over to you, tech team. And over to you, Anupam. Really looking forward to this lecture. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Godrej, for this very warm introduction, and gracious, of course, as you always are. Hi, very good afternoon, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to see all of you here. It's wonderful to be able to share this platform with the Museum Society of Mumbai. And as you're aware, I serve as the head of art conservation, research and training here at the CSMVS Museum at Mumbai. And over the years that we have worked here, we have been working with a variety of objects of various materials and technologies. And today, from that range of objects, we are going to be picking up the wondrous surface that we are all privy to, something that we see as soon as we see something, and what we call the colors, the colors of the world, the colors of the sky, and the colors of the historic and artistic works that are manifestations of human progress and of our work, and also represent a human continuum. So today's talk is titled Rang-Rasayan, because Rasayan as in the chemistry part of it, in terms of the scientific aspects of it, and Rang as in the beauty of the colors. So I'll take you to the first slide. And when we talk about manuscripts and miniature paintings, we are talking about, as far as this subcontinent is concerned, in this part of the world, right from the east of India, on the northeast of India, where you see those two yellow dots there, you have the Hasipat or the Sachipat manuscripts, which are made on the bark of the agaru tree. The agaru tree, as you're all aware, as many of you are aware, is a tree that at one point of time, suddenly the village wakes up to this wondrous aroma, wondrous smells and fragrance of this beautiful fragrance. And that happens because the agaru tree has got fungus. And because the fungus has attacked the tree releases these resins. And these resins are then collected and they're shipped away to the Middle East. There's a group of people that come to the tree, come to the household whose tree has suddenly turned fragrant. And that's the magic of the agaru tree, and it makes itra. Now, the bast of this agaru tree is treated and it's made into manuscripts in the northeastern part of India. It's unique to that part. And then when you go all the way up to the west of India, you have the manuscripts made up of palm leaves, which are broad. You go to the south of India, you have palm leaves, but which are thinner. You go further down to Sri Lanka, we have the Puskolapothi, which are the Sri Talam, as they call it, the longer leaves. And if you go up north, you have the birch bark. You have the birch bark manuscripts, which on which people write texts, and they also color them. Everybody has wanted to express themselves. I'm doing so now, and people have done it over millennia. And the first surfaces which human beings have expressed themselves have been the rock surfaces and the rock shelters. And this is in Lekhamoda, by the way, in Odisha, in that, with Jharsuguda and Sundargarh districts. It's exquisite rock art. And the colors that we see here, as we see, oh, wonderful, they're animals and these prints of hands and designs, and they are reddish in color, and they are black, and they are white, and they are yellow. And these are this is the palette that has been there since millennia, our mother palette, so to speak. That is about 30,000 years ago. We go to the Indus Valley period. You're looking at about 5,000 years ago. This is a beautiful terracotta receptacle that was also displayed at the India and the World exhibition at the CSMVS recently, 2 years back. This is from the topic collection of Raffel and Shilpa Shah. And here, look at we have the greens that have come into play here. While we talked about on the rock art, the red and the yellow and the black, here we have the greens also that have come into play. And these are all earth colors because they stem from the earth. And that's a category of how we in general conversation refer to colors, earth colors, beautiful earth colors. 5,000 years ago, we come further, we come a bit closer to us. We're looking at 1,500 years ago. We're looking at these beautiful stucco sculptures. We're looking at these lovely stucco sculptures from the, the northwest frontier provinces, so to speak. We're looking at Afghanistan, Baluchistan, exactly, as far as these sculptures are concerned. And here you see, while stucco, we are all aware, is made of lime and gravel and a bit of vegetable matter. Here, we see a bit of the reds. We see in the earlobes, we see a bit in the hair, we see here where the hair meets the forehead, and we see at the eyelids a little bit of red ochre again, red ochre. Red ochre has been the mother of colors since millennia. We come here to the 5th century AD. Of course, it spans about 600-700 years of fantastic human effort to create these wonderful rock-cut caves in this basaltic horseshoe-shaped platform, so to speak, near Ajita, the village of Ajita. And here it is in these caves which all of us should visit to see what human endeavor is about. The potency of human endeavor is to see in these lovely caves, and there are thousands and thousands of square feet of these exquisite paintings. How they created it, people laughed at people of this subcontinent and said, oh, primitive people, they don't know art, they have no art, they have nothing, there's no sense of painting, but the fact is that you said you have no perspective. You want to see perspective, you want to see volume, you want to see depth, you want to see the purity of line, you want to see the bravura of the artist. Come and see Ajanta, 2,000 years old paintings, and the polychromy, and the exquisite colors that are there in all this place. You see them here. You have the lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, you have the red ochres, and you have the cinnabars, and you have the orpiments, and you have all these earth colors and mineral colors. That's the second category of colors. And from the rock shelters and from the terracotta and the stucco surfaces, you've graduated to wall painting. They come to these exquisite Ajanta paintings. And we move, this is down here in the peninsula. You go further up to the mountains. You go beyond the greenery of Uttarakhand and Himachal, and you go to the dry deserts of India, and you go to this Ladakh area. You have so many places. One of them is Alchi, and there are these wonderful monasteries there. And you have again here sculptures, these are sculptures again with armatures made of wood, and then there is clay around it, and then there are these fine layers around it. And look at the exquisite paintings again, exquisite paintings, exquisite paintings. And the paintings cover all these surfaces. And imagine they've been there for so long. You saw the Lekhamoda rock art. You saw the stucco from Gandhara. You saw the Indus Valley pots. You saw the colors, how they've come. And see the flowering of colors here now. In this dry land, where you have only the color of Markalak, the clay that inhabits this place, where every color of the earth, where nature really bears itself, purple and green and red. If you see the mountains in this Ladakh area, you see Mother Nature in her bareness, so to speak. And there human beings have then brought in whatever color there was, and they've embellished these places. So we're looking at the macro of it in terms of how people have used color to embellish their environments, their surrounding. the things they like to see and they worship and they revere, and the goddesses. And it's all and always about, there was always this aspect of representation. It was always for knowledge. It was knowledge for those, for the person who would see, and it was knowledge for the person who would create also. It was also any act of creating a painting, an illustrated manuscript, or a manuscript was all about spiritual upliftment of the person also as an individual. You know, as they say, painting, you know, like in Merchant of Venice, if you remember your school, it says the quality of mercy is not strained. It droppeth as the gentle rain from heaven. It is twice blessed. It blesses him that gives and him that receives. And this is true also for art. And for, in this context, for the paintings and the miniatures and the manuscripts and the written word which comes on paper. It's twice blessed for the creator and for those who see it and partake of it. Well, this is writing developed on supports. So here we have your first supports as far as the mountain kingdoms were concerned. You had the birch bark. You had this lovely bast. It is called birch bark, but it was never the bark. The bark is the outer one. We must remember it is always the inner versions they took, which technically is known as bast, B-A-S-T. And the best papers are also made from bast of the shrubs and other vegetable plants that you may use to create paper. One of the biggest centers of paper making was Samarkand. Once paper came in from China, it went via Samarkand to the west, and then from Samarkand also it came here. So they used to say, Kagaz e Samarkandi, e Talwar e Hindustani. In fact, the swords of India with the wood steel were fantastic. They were famous all over the world. Anyway, digressing I am. So you have the birch bark manuscripts, and you have this lovely writing on it. And then while you have because that material was available there, the material that was available in other parts of India was, one of them was palm leaves. In fact, leaves were always a surface on which people wrote, and that's why the Latin is folio, as in a leaf. Technically, it literally means a leaf. So even the pages today then of these books and all that we have is, you know, this is technically one folio. The leaf, one leaf. Yeah. So this is from the, Pragya Paramita, from Eastern India. This is in the CSMS collection. So what I wanted particularly to show here was when people used color and they wrote on surfaces, there was either a surface writing, which was written on the surface, where there would be the pigment and the color which be mixed with the binder, so it would stick to the surface, you know, like a war paint here, something that would stick to you. And the other would be where it would be incised, where the writing would be gouged into the surface of the text, and then they would put some pigment or some, you know, they would rub some leaves on it, you know, just to make it visible and legible. So that is how they wrote on leaves to begin with. And when it came to writing, obviously, when it came to expressing yourselves, right, it was about coloring it. It was about illustrating it. Later on, it came to be known as, you began to illuminate it. Yeah, illuminations. In the Occident, in the West, it was illuminations. And everybody has documented, codified things that they have seen over time, over millennia. So when we go to Indian texts about paintings and colors and the way an artist or a scribe would write on a surface or illustrate a surface, there would be always these various texts that have, people refer to, and you find a chapter here, and you find a chapter there. The most common being the Chitra Sutra chapter from the Vishnu Dharmata Puran. That's about 6th to 5th to 7th century AD. And then there's so many other texts, you can always see them. And these are little, and we've always found snippets of the first painting on earth, by Nagnajit, for example. You'd find a little snippet of what were our primary colors. Interestingly, black and white were our primary colors in India earlier, right? In those terms, as we call them, our mool rang jo hamare hote the, usme kala aur safed bhi tha. So like that, you have all these various texts which talk about it. Now, while all this is there, if we get straight into color, let us first clarify one thing before we walk further on this path of understanding the colors in Indian miniatures and manuscripts. But we must remember, color is perception. It's all Maya. It's all Maya. Animals see color differently. We see color differently, and amongst us also, some of us see color differently from each other. So we must remember that pigments, there are two things, pigments. So these are black, white, or colored powders, which when you mix in water or something, it does not dissolve. That is technically a pigment. And when we talk about earth colors and mineral colors, we must remember that these are pigments. So we'll say, now that we have walked 15 minutes into the conversation, we'll now call them red pigments and not red colors. Because what is red for me may be purple for you. In fact, it is such an illusion that the same color, if it is surrounded by some other color, will look different completely. So it's so relative even for the same person. Leave alone the gift of eyesight of one person and another person. The same person sees the same color just because it is surrounded by something else, you have a different perception. So therefore, let's call them pigments. And the dyes would be those which, when you put in water or something like that, it'll dissolve or usme ghul jayega. And that would be dyes. So when you have a bit of dal and a bit of it falls on your shirt and you do like this, the color will seep into the linen, that white linen of yours in the Bombay summer heat. It'll just go into it and it'll form a nice yellowish hue. Much to your chagrin, but it's there, it's a dye. It's a dye. Whereas on Holi, when they play Holi with you and they throw that color and that gulal and that abir on you, you just brush it off and say, oh man, you brush it off like that. Those are pigments because they do not by themselves can go into solution. They're just there on the surface. And Geru was one such, Geru, that red ochre, that everywhere that you see that ubiquitous red ochre, iron oxide, you get it in a hardware shop, you get it in an artist shop, you get it in a fine artist studio, you get it in a temple, and you'll get it everywhere. You'll get it as you walk on the earth. A modest color lying there on the earth as you walk by it. But that same color has been used across civilizations to create the underdrawings, to create the design on which then we would paint. And then they would paint like this. This is the month of June. For some reason, the monsoons are not there today, but they'll be there tomorrow because the winds are blowing. They're blowing the banana leaves, and this lady is pointing that direction. Krishna, whoever he is holding her, cupping her breast close to him. The peacock is busy with, sharpening its beak or scratching itself. There's an umbrella. Of course, there's going to be impending rain. Yeah, and the monsoon season comes, and there's lightning in the sky. And remember, all this color that you see is only Geru. It is just been created into different hues by the dilution of the pigment with water. And that is the mastery that an artist has. The mastery to be able to create the hue that one wants, right? With just an addition of a bit of water, or a carrier as they call it. And the scene comes alive. And that's a palm leaf umbrella. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is Geru. This is Geru. The simple earth that is there. You pick it up, and it is the most simplest of pigments to make. I was telling somebody in a lecture recently where I used this slide. This lady had just got married in this village, and they were making pigments here. So they said, no, don't trouble her. She's a newlywed bride. Give her the simplest pigment to make. This is a place where lots of people in Raghurajpur in Orissa, where a lot of people make pigments and paints and things like that. They gave her this geru. They said, chalo, beta ye banao. So basically you take it, you put some water, and you just turn it round and round, and you put some water, and it becomes an unctuous paste, very soft to touch. And then you use it for your underdrawings and or lipoing the floor when you want for rituals. Geru. And look at this one now. That was an underdrawing or a line drawing you saw. This is from the Anwar-e Suhaili, the manuscript commissioned by Emperor Akbar, a translation of the Panchatantra. And in this, which represents the gathering of the birds or the congregation of the birds, all this red that we see here, I wonder if I have a close-up of this. Yeah, see, all this red that we see here is Geru. All the red on the heron's head, on the birds, on the Garuda's kalgi, it's all Geru. Other than the underdrawings, of course, it would always be used also to color the manuscript. And of course, surrounding it are these other colors. You have a bit of greens and you have browns. And as the day's work is done, and as these birds have gone after a day's work and they've had the congregation, this is a story where the ocean swallows up the eggs of the plover, and then the birds get together to scheme as to how to get the eggs back. As the day settles, night falls, and from Geru, which is that lovely color that we have, we take it to black. This is a manuscript from the Cleveland Museum. I've used a number of pictures from the Cleveland Museum here, where I've just given a talk. This was a recent gift that these are paintings they acquired they were gifted about three years back. And look at this lovely painting. This is from the Mewar school, where they are gone hunting, and the lightning in the sky is like a snake, represented like a snake. There's a tree here under which this lady is cooking something deliciously reminiscent of kebabs. And the entire surface of this painting is this black. So it is not jet black. There are hues in black. There are so many hues in black. And this is important. And this is important to know, because those who are familiar with a certain environment have so many names for the subtleties that enrich their environment. Whether we talk about the Inuits and the way they have different names for snow, similarly, artists in their vernacular environment and in their vernacular setting use different names and different terms and terminologies for the various hues of the same colors that they use. And with this dissociation of the people from their vernacular environment and into the experts and scholars who are sitting here, and then I'm making this talk on this, and I'm going to be talking about that color. The fact is, the amount of subtleties that they have with their art and their craft in their environment far exceeds what we have. And with the loss of the vernacular terminologies, that and us pushing only a certain term, which is important in order to have a common understanding, but you lose a lot of subtleties in the explanation of the material itself. Well, in this case, if this is black that the person is using, this lady has a pot in her hand. And this pot is actually, see, she's throwing light with it. So basically, it's a pot which is hollowed. It's a pot, and inside is probably gold leaf or something, and there's a lamp in it. And so she lights that lamp, and from the mouth of the pot, there is this light that comes out and arrests, and the deer's eyes shine, and the heel king then impales the deer with the arrow. So this is black. The black that was used has always been used across the world. By the way, there are various types of blacks. From mummy black, with you make mummy, because you used to take mummies from the Egyptian tombs, you would crush them and they would make something called a mummy black. That was marketed. Nowadays, by the way, there is a fantastic black called Vanta black, which I saw at the Strauss Center at Harvard Art Museum. It is a black which just absorbs every color that comes to you. So you don't even see the undulation of the surface on which the black is. So if you put that Vanta black on my face, what you would see is not the contours of my face. You would see just a flat surface because no light would come to you. Vanta black. Vanadium nanotube array. That is the full form of Vanta. This black was made with the lamps. You would take the lamp, you would light it, the soot would collect, and then you'd scrape it, and you'll use it, and you'll line your eyes with the kajal, and then she will also take some and give it to her husband and her children, whoever is making the drawings and the painting, and say, "Here, this much is for you, the rest is for me." And that gold that we saw that time, the gold was made with this. You have this gold, you take gold, you hammer it, and then they used to take this gold. Sometimes they would apply it as leaf, but often they would take a stone, they would put some gum on it, and they'll put a gold leaf on it, and then they'll rub it with the hands. They'll rub it with the hands so much that the gold pulverizes into powder. And once the gold pulverizes into powder, they'll mix it with the binder, and then they will paint their manuscripts. So the gold would embellish the color, the surfaces. We talked about palm leaves. So you had the palm leaves, and then you had the wooden boards, right? So almost 1,000 years ago, once this aspect of illustrating the surfaces gained much currency in terms of the written surfaces, colors came into play to illustrate the texts also. And here the colors that we see, suddenly the reds come into play. The reds come alive. And this red, ladies and gentlemen, is this mineral. This mineral is called hingula or cinnabar. People can refer to it exactly as mercuric sulphide. It's a mineral. You get it there in its raw form. You pick it up. In fact, it's 70% mercury. If you put it in a pot with some lemon juice and cook it, these Ayurvedic doctors do it, and you cook it, and you put another pot on top of it, the vapors will rise, and the vapors will collect in the inner, on this surface of the upper pot. And then you correct it, it'll all be globules of mercury. And then they use it for their medicines. So this mercury is then ground, it is then filtered, and they make the colors with which they So all these reds that we see here, this is all cinnabar, all mercuric sulfide. The line drawings that were made with geru, or the red ochre. And you had these. The black was carbon black. The green in this case was green earth. And it is not available in India so much, which is interesting. Green is very, very limited in its use. Greens and blues are limited in their use in India. The richest could afford lapis lazuli from Afghanistan. At that time in the world, there was just one mine which supplied all the world's lapis lazuli. Ah, interesting. And that this is jumping the gun, but lapis lazuli is known as what is now known as ultramarine blue, because mare means sea in European tongues, and ultra as in over, the other than. So because blue color came from Afghanistan across the seas to the European continent, it was known as ultramare, from over the seas. And that's why the word then ultramare, it became ultramarine. So ultramarine blue is now synthetically produced. Earlier it was ultramare. Lapis lazuli. In India, they called it large vard, or in Mughal tongues, large vard. Otherwise, they would call it in Sanskrit Rajvarta. And you see it in Ajanta, no? That lovely blue. The other red, so we've seen geru as a red, we've seen cinnabar as a red. Now this is red lead, sindoor. That chutki bhar sindoor. This is that one. This is the sindoor, the red lead. And if you have manuscripts which are painted with red lead and there's pollution around you, the chances are it will turn black because of the pollution, because lead alters with time. So all your reds will become black. But don't lose heart. The conservators are there. They'll alter it back to a lovely red. And look, I show you just this one. So this red lead, you look at that lovely little flower there. It always reminds me of an Edelweiss. Of course, it's a red color, but the shape of it. This, by the way, is from the Anvari Sueli, from the fabulous Panchatantra stories. And you have these, this lovely little, I picked it up because it does not distract you. Just that one, that color is red lead. And believe me, if you see miniature paintings, 10, 15 miniature paintings, 10, 15 times, over and over again, you'll be able to differentiate colors just by looking at them. At least as a natural understanding of things. It's really so simple because we have such a limited palette. Of course, the ingenuity of human beings have been able to mix colors and make them into different hues. But the basic nature remains the same. So if you just see manuscripts many, many times and you know once this color is this, this color is this, this color is this, believe me, you'll be very comfortable with identifying the pigments that are used. There are always these other technical confirmatory tests that you can have. I take you now to this other one, right? This is when Emperor Akbar translated the Mahabharata. This is one painting where I show this to you because it is in this one section here that you see both the you see the red ochre, you see the cinnabar, and you also see the red lead. I think I'll show you in the next slide. This one. You see that stole that Bhishma is wearing, that red one, as he's explaining to Yudhishthir, who's sitting in this mauve-colored clothes. He's explaining how important it is to be generous, especially in times of crisis, like now. How important it is to donate things. So he's explaining that. And So that is a red lead. The wall color behind him, that wall color behind him is in fact, I'll just do this for you. Here you are. So this is cinnabar, this is red lead, and these are Geru colors. You see? So these are and then these are all variations with a mix of a little bit of this and a little bit of that, right? And then you have the yellows here, and you have, so beautiful. This blue of the carpet, by the way, is lapis lazuli. This beautiful, beautiful blue. I'll just clear this. Right. I'll take you now to the other color. Now, if you have three colors like this, how do you differentiate them? So I said with practice, with the eye, one will be able to differentiate them. And then you have these lovely instruments nowadays with technology making things smaller and smaller. Now you just have a handheld gun that's called a tracer. So it throws out these X-rays and they hit the color, and the color makes a sound. So red ochre makes a sound, and Mercury sulfide makes another different type of sound, and red lead makes a third different type of sound. And the machine reads the sound and says, oh, that sound, that's mercury. So this machine, what it will tell us is, hey, this, by the way, this 15th century Paubha of Nepal has mercury in it. So it gives you a peak like this, mercury. So you have to add 2 plus 1, and you say it is exactly 3. So mercury, the red color that carries mercury, is generally cinnabar or mercuric sulfide. So this color, this pigment is mercuric sulfide. I took this picture because you see the geometric way in which the deity is in the center, and that the rest of the accessories around it in a geometrical pattern is exactly how even folk art, contemporary folk art, has carried on today. This is the Jagannath Temple, the Thya Badiya iconography, as they call it, with Jagannath Temple in the center and the rest of the deities around in a geometrical sort of fashion. It's interesting how these things have carried on, not just the use of that pigment, which has carried on across millennia, but all the way you mix the pigment with the binder, but also the way one then creates the surface of objects, the way you treat them and you represent them. So he's analyzing it and he's seeing the result there, and then he'll note it down as what it is. I take you now to the color white. The color white has a variety of sources. So you have the conch shell from the seas, you have the zinc white, you have the clays, especially in Rajasthan. If you see, the Udaipur division has the one of the largest deposits of these clays used for the ceramic industry. That's what art is. Art, it's interesting. Art uses it's very interesting. Art uses just a little bit of material. The rest is used for ceramic. The rest is used to build houses. The rest of the lime is used to create these fantastic palaces. But the artist takes just this much away. And then he creates a picture which is all of it just this size. And we are talking about it. And we talk about these paintings. And we talk about these beautiful works of art, which are so small. And they are lovable, maybe also because they're very human scale. You know, you can play with them in your hand. They're just there for you. So you have the white clays, and then you have the lead carbonate. So there are different ways in which, in India, as far as Indian miniature and manuscripts are concerned, all these whites have been used. All these 4 whites have been used. Reds, we talked about 3. Black, we talked about 1. And look at this painting. This is, in fact, I remember Dr. Kavita Singh from JNU had written an article recently And she talked about paintings of this series, so to speak. They're from the Pahadi school of paintings. And I like that lovely use of white here. The occasion is also solemn. So King Dashratha has died, has passed away, and Ram and Lakshman are in the forest, right? So Ram and Lakshman are in the forest, King Dashrath has died, and Bharat and Shatrughan have to go to convey this sad news to his elder brother Ram and Lakshman there. And so they're going now in the procession to find them where they are and tell them that this has happened, brother. And the artist has used white to express this, not sad, but it has, the white has brought this calmness to the whole narration, so to speak. I think I'll have a close up. Look at this, so beautiful. They're going now. They've decided, go ahead. And this beautiful use of white. And these were never just stark whites. Every white, depending on its origin, had its hues. The whites also had their hues. And the white is such a beautiful color. All you need is just a little bit of color, and white defines it in a manner that is so illustrative, so to speak. Beautiful use of white. And all you need is just add a little bit of some other pigment to give it whatever hue you want. This is one of those bits of clay that you find in the earth, and you take it and you crush it and make it. But the toughest color to make is also the white, which is made from conch shells. So like we talked about that lady who was the newlywed bride and who was given the simplest color to make, which was Keru, the easiest pigment to grind. She, the matriarch of this house, is making the toughest color, which was conch shells, which you have to beat and you have to crush, and they are difficult. And look at the size of that pestle that she's using, and the mortar, so to speak, and this. And then she'll crush it, and then they will filter it, and they'll crush it again, and they'll take it forward like that. Very difficult color to make. The other color that we find in our miniature paintings, and which lend so much, and they are always, yellow is always used not just for yellows, but also to color the other colors. You put it in the red to make an orange, you put it in the blacks to make a green. It's interesting. In India, green was not so popular. In certain areas where you found the greens, as in red, as in green earth, in other places, you did not. We do not have malachite in those quantities that it would make a popular pigment to have. Often people used black with yellow. We always say, no, you put some indigo and you put some yellow and it'll make a green. Yes, you find that also. But we must remember that we also find black and yellow mixed together to give you that sort of hue. Look at this from the CSMS collection. There's Parshuram, and he big in stature, and then Ram humbles him. And then this whole episode, the yellows that are used here are these strong yellows, which I want to show you here. It's beautiful yellows. So you have the reds, yellows, blacks, and whites, and then the greens. So you have a bit of greens, you have a bit of blues, right? So the yellows here. The yellows would be either orpiment, known as haratal, or arsenic sulfide, again poisonous. Cinnabar also is poisonous. And you have the other yellow, which was the Indian yellow, which you took cow's urine, which are fed with mango leaves, and it gets sick, and then you collect it, and then you sell it as a pigment. It was banned on humanitarian grounds in the 1800s by the British. And this yellow is being tested, and it shows you that it is arsenic. It's arsenic. That's it. That's arsenic. Arsenic sulfide, or piment, or harital. This one. You grind it, you mix it with the binder, and it makes the yellow paint. There is another type of arsenic sulfide. There's a little variation in its chemistry, and it is known as realgar. And in India, they call it manisil. So it takes on a reddish hue, actually. It's the same thing, same composition. So when you analyze it, there might be a difference. It takes on this, this reddish hue. It's even mentioned in the Mahabharata. In the, one of the saddest stories of the Mahabharata is Karna, the death of Karna. This, and he was excluded as a child, he was excluded at birth, as a child, as a student. Even in death, his mother disowned him. Really, his is the most marmic of the stories in the Mahabharata. So in that it says when Karna is dying, it says he was impaled with arrows, and jab, like Karna baan viddha ho gaya tha, he fell like when he was impaled by arrows, he fell like a mountain of Manashila. So there are representations of these colors and things like that, and these minerals in literature and text throughout. And that is what we had talked about earlier. Our treatises are not just technical treatises, as we would have Cennini or somebody else. They were more like references to things like that. So that is the other color, the Manasir. This is the Manasir. You make the yellows with it. And then you have the yellow earth. So the soil, you take it, and artists, all the miniature artists, if you see, or anyone who, the vernacular traditions, who follow vernacular traditions, they take the pigment, they mix it with a bit of gum, and they make them into balls, and then they put them in a pouch. And that's how they carried their pigments and manuscripts with them, like little balls, like marbles, small marbles of color, and they would put them and then carry them wherever they went, and then they painted and regaled the world. I wanted to show this because there is a lot of conversation about, we also use vegetable colors in India. We must remember that if they are vegetable colors, they are all dyes. Whether it is the red lac dye or it is the one from the flowers, it is all dyes, which in time will fade away. So if you have a manuscript or a painting or a textile which is made with dyes, remember, keep it away from the windows because the color will disappear. And often we would also take the colors, you would expose them to certain types of different lights like ultraviolet, and they will fluoresce, and they will let you know what pigment it is. And that is how you can identify the difference between an Indian yellow or an orpiment or yellow earth. It's all a play of light, right? This is from the Panchatantra. I mentioned it because when we talk about yellow, there are references that says there is no technical text that says you feed a cow mango leaf and then they will get sick, and then the urine will be full of this calcium and magnesium euxanthates, and then that is, you'll dry it and you'll make the color. But in poetry, you have mention of use of things like this. So you have all these pigments, and you also have the binders then. So you have the gums. The one on the right side is tamarind seed, which is crushed to make a weak gum. And this is from the acacia trees and the babool and the koitha, the different types of trees across different parts of India. And every tree produced a different type of gum. We have all generalized them as gum arabic, but it's not true. They're all different types of gums, which are then mixed with the pigments, and then that's how you make the beautiful colors. And when you make, you take the pigment and you take the binder and you mix it together in whether it is little receptacles made of coconut or whether it is receptacles made of terracotta or receptacles made of stone that has been hollowed out. And that is where the artist would put the pigments and he would put the binders and he'll mix them together. and then they will apply them on the surfaces, which in this case are paint or in this case a paper or a leaf surfaces. Now today, if you want to buy these colors, or where did these people buy their colors from? Where did they buy these colors from? They bought these colors from the traders, the medicine men. That is where you get the colors. You know, they did not have an artist shop at that time. You went to the Ayurveda people. You went to the people who sold those jari booties. Because all these pigments that you see, especially the mineral ones, were all used for medicine. Right? And that is why they were expensive, and you found them with the medicine men. And the medicine men traveled across these arterial roads in pilgrimage sites, and they carried their colors with them. Artists would pick up a little bit of this. And the doctors would take a little bit from them. So everybody would take a little bit. That's how it flourished. This, by the way, is indigo, which you're aware of. It's made with the plant. And that is a view of what the mine looks like, where lapis lazuli is taken out from. And then you take in the case of indigo, this is a plant, it's a dye. So you have to precipitate it on a white powder to make what is called a pseudo pigment or an artificial pigment. And then you, and it's interesting how it has been used from the mountains to the backwaters. The greens were the green earth, which we said were not very common. You had malachite, which was very, very rare in India in that context of availability. Jangal is a manufactured pigment. It is a beautiful green, but it is deceptive because it destroys the support which it colors and makes beautiful. It is like high heels. They make you look great, but they'll jack your back. Just like this Jangal. It's a beautiful color. It'll make this lovely, lovely green, and it is so lovely and so soothing. But slowly, slowly, if you see the back of that painting or that cloth, it will turn it to brown, and eventually it will be cut and it'll fall and it'll be destroyed. And people use all kinds of receptacles for putting their colors. As I come to the end of the talk, just to show you that, this is the way people played with. Today, there are so many other pigments and there are so many other dyes that have come into play. And to regale our senses and to enrich our understanding of stories that people want to narrate. Right? But earlier on, it began with these two, with the leaves and with the paper. And this is the story how they colored a manuscript, and we taught our children and we learned ourselves, and we carry the tradition forward. Today at the CSMBS, for example, you have these wonderful projects where we are identifying pigments used in Indian art in various collections, private people. By the way, CSMBS has just recently opened out all its technical analysis facilities to the public. For like a token fee, you can identify the pigments in your manuscripts, you can identify the pigments on your paintings, everything. They've opened out all their instruments and all their technical equipment. So people can just, whether it's scholars, whether it's students, or whether it's people who own the art. And that project about analysis of paintings is already underway, and it's slowly documenting the art pigment richness of India all across the subcontinent. And we will share that with you. That'll be another story after a year or something like that. Thank you, Museum Society of Bombay. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us. And well, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much, Jason. Thank you for this.